Yani imagine a whole week nilikutumia a sample. Kwa? Leo ndo umeona. Si ndio hiyo code yenye nilikutumia hiyo repo. Na umerespond leo. Jamani, jamani. Itabidi ukoseme. Oh, Mr. Moral. Huyo ndio mimi sasa. No problem. Yes. Okay. Okay. No problem.
I'm good.
Oh, awesome. Oh, okay. Your audio is a bit distorted, but I think I hear a bit of what you're saying. I think you're saying you're good. Oh, okay.
Yeah, I'm good.
Awesome. Thanks for joining, man. Thanks for joining.
Thank you.
Yes. Well, your audio, your mic. I don't know if it is your mic or whatever you said at the end there. I didn't hear. Could be your mic or the network. Okay, so this is the repo that Regan.
I think it's my network.
Yeah. Now it seems like now it sounds like there's a whole. But anyway, I'm glad you're good, and thank you for joining.
You can attack.
Oh, nice. Now I can hear you. What was happening?
It was my mic actually.
Oh yeah, it was like you're in a war zone or something.
You have attacked me.
Umenikumbusha Great Wall TV.
Awesome.
Anyways, thanks for joining, man. Is there something you are saying?
Thank you.
Well, your mic had an issue that I might have missed.
I was diagnosing the issue.
Oh, okay. Oh, that's what I missed. Okay, looks like you have diagnosed it.
Thank you.
Yeah. Hey, Patrick.
Steve.
Hi.
How are you doing?
I'm fine. You?
I'm good. I'm good. Thank you for joining the session.
Okay.
Awesome. Awesome. So we are just looking at a repository that Regan has shared here, just to get a glimpse of it. It is related to something we were discussing last week when it comes to validating your payload. Instead of validating everything at once, you could chain the validation and define an order and use that order to prioritize your validation process, that if somebody sends you something malicious, you can already detect it without having to go through the whole payload. And this, I think the way we discussed it last time, this can be useful if your endpoint receives a significantly large payload, or an attacker is sending you a giant payload and they know that your validators might be stuck in the validation cycle, and then that becomes a DOS attack or something, denial of service attack, or it just becomes an optimization opportunity, so that when you receive requests, you're able to deny them quicker, instead of going through the whole payload before you reject a malformed request. So there's a reference implementation that Regan worked on here, which I'm going to clone. And then once I clone it, we are going to check it out. So I hope I'm sharing my screen. I didn't check to make sure I'm sharing. Am I sharing my screen?
No. No.
Let me share. Okay. I think you guys can see my screen now. Do a thumbs up if you can see it.
Inakaa blurry, but I think with time it'll clear.
Oh, okay. It usually does that. I don't know why. Maybe my network or something. Let me try sharing it a second time. Okay. Let me try sharing it a second time. And some of these problems I've learned, if you are not using Chrome, some of these Google services don't work really well. Some of them depend on Chrome for some reason.
That's true.
Yeah. What about now?
Bado iko but ni blurry bado.
Oh my goodness.
No, give it like a minute.
Okay.
I think it'll clear.
Okay, cool. So I'm just going to clone that. Let me clone it somewhere I can find it easily. So I have it. I think I can open it from IntelliJ now. It's called registration API. Registration. Okay. Okay, so this is the project. It's a Spring multi-module project, which by the Regan, one of these days we should do a session on JBE. When you get time, let me know so that you can show us how to use these Spring modules. The way modules was introduced in Java with Java 9, I think it was called Project Jigsaw or something. Most of us didn't care because Java 8 was still new and we were more concerned with understanding what streams are and how to use lambdas. So most people didn't look into modules. But I think Spring is utilizing the same language level thing to do modules. So personally, I'll be honest, I don't know how Spring modules work. This is a bit new. I just know that it's something you can do. Maybe the best thing would be, Regan, can you like take us through? I'll be sharing the screen, and then you just let me know which directory to go through, and maybe you can tell us something about the code. Welcome, Kennedy. Thanks for joining, and Daniel. Regan, you can go ahead.
Okay.
You can just give us maybe like
I think we go through the readme because I tried to give a detailed description hapo kwa readme.
Okay. So it's a registration API, yes. And this is the file structure. So there's commons. What does this commons have? Like generally, is it like like you're using repository pattern, and then common has the models and utility functions, or I don't want to misunderstand.
Basically, it has the utility functions.
Oh, okay. Oh yeah, I'm
I
seeing.
think nime explain to hapo kwa readme.
Okay. Yeah, let me not make you explain twice. So
no problem.
Okay, no worries. So common has utility functions. They are basically custom exceptions, like email already exists and username already exists, and then it defines API response.
Then
yeah.
You also see the way I told you kwa text, like I tried to also include the comments because most of it comes from maybe what I took from the class we had, and also the part of the research I did.
Okay. Yeah, and that's super helpful by the having these comments. The comments are usually not useful if you're not going to share the code with anyone, but if you're going to share code, it's usually good to have some comments. So
but me, I do use them.
Oh, you use comments even for like your.
Acha nikwambie, unaona hata kwa GitHub.
Yeah.
I use a pull request for personal projects.
Oh, I also do pull requests. I even do releases.
So just do it because you never know. Sometimes unaweza kaa for a long time and then you're like, what was I doing?
Oh yeah, that's true. And also trying to write self-documenting code can also be useful for when you forget to document.
Yes.
Like you've done at least with the modularization, that's already one aspect of self-documentation because you've already split the problem into a subset, and then now with the comments it becomes really good. And of course naming, which you've done well in my opinion.
Thank you.
So here I'm seeing, so you have custom exceptions. We have this custom response object, API response, which should help us achieve HETIOS. You don't have links for this one. So it's just a way to standardize the server response to the client. So this will have the data, the message, error if there's an error, and why do you need this timestamp? Regan?
Oh, sorry.
Oh yeah, I was asking what would be the use of this timestamp in the API response?
Nime highlight kwa readme. Go to the readme.
So that's common running policy. Testing. I think you might have, unless I'm not seeing correctly. Looks like you didn't document that part.
I forgot.
But it's,
let me check code yangu.
But it's part of the API response.
Yes.
Let me also see where you're calling it. Okay, so you use it when composing the API response. Oh, okay, so it's just current timestamp. Yeah, because the reason I was asking also, this can be tricky, especially if you are dealing with time zone issues, unless the instance contains the time zone. It's like zone daytime.
Yes, yes.
Oh, okay. If it contains the time zone, then no problem. I was going to say if the server is located in a different region, the client might mistake your timestamp for the incorrect time. Okay, so that's good. So this is the general structure of API response. Of course, there's some utility functions for defining success, where you're passing data and message. So this becomes useful for composing a response quickly. API response.success. I think that's good. Since Kennedy is here, I'm sure Kennedy would probably try to optimize this with the sealed interfaces and records, so that success function becomes an instance function in a record, and then the API response becomes immutable. I don't know if Kennedy is still with us. Kennedy, that's likely what you would do. You'd be doing, right? Okay. It looks like Kennedy's mic is not working today. But Kennedy, once you're able to unmute, just let me know if there's any design changes that you'd make here. I think with the records, this would be a good candidate for using records, because that immutability gives you some additional optimization at runtime. And I think you can take advantage of that. Also, if you end up doing some concurrency with your request processing and you're passing this API response around, making it a record would also give you some safety. But anyway, the API response looks clear. So this is just the data we are sending back, the actual payload, the message, and error, just in case there's an error, and we are sending back a timestamp with every request. I guess that just informs the client when this request was last processed. The other thing we have here is validation, which is the main event. So yeah, you're defining them as, okay, so there's this first check. Then a minimum age, I think this is a custom validation annotation for checking.
Yes, yes.
Okay. Can you talk us through it a bit? Tell us anything a little about this. Regan.
Sorry, I'm trying to control the environment at the same time.
Oh, no, by the way, I'm sorry, I kind of hijacked you this. I'm sure you did not prepare for this. So what I'm going to do, I'm just going to ask a question, and then you answer quickly, and then you can mute.
But no problem. The good thing, this part,
yeah,
we go through the comment first, and then we get the lead way.
Okay, let me go through the comment, and then if there's any other question, I'll ask.
Okay.
So from the comment, so confirms an integer age field meets a minimum threshold, field level, not class level, but still belongs in a second check rather than a first check. So here we have two levels of checking: the first check, this one, and the second check. So when a client sends us a payload, I assume we'll do the first check, and then if the first check succeeds is when we'll move on to the second check. So this minimum age belongs to the first check.
Yes.
Okay. So a blank null age should be caught by not null first, and it's pointless to evaluate is null. So if it's null, it doesn't make sense to check whether it's greater than 18. So greater than 18 would probably be in the second check.
Yes.
Okay. So that's the kind of unnecessary evaluation group sequence is meant to prevent, which is what came up last time. So this is a really good, good example. Is there something you want to add on this minimum age?
No. I think the comment itself in explain the reason why we had to go through the process of first using the first check so that we can go to the next.
Okay.
Yes.
Awesome. So this refers to the minimum age validator, which implements the actual validation logic. So here we get the minimum age, which is the value that's integer, and we check whether the age is null. If it is null, return true. Otherwise, we can check for whether age is greater than or equal to minimum age. So minimum age is what the user will define in the annotation. So it will be part of the fields. Let's see. So this value will be minimum age, which defaults to 18.
Yes.
Nice. And then our minimum age validator will receive that minimum age, and then we'll check. So age is the value that we are validating. If that is null, we return true. Otherwise, we'll check whether it's greater than minimum age. Okay. I guess that minimum age will return true. So null is intentionally not this validator's concern. Okay, so that's why I was just about to ask why you're returning true, and this is obviously an invalid value. So null is intentionally not this validator's concern. Not null in first check already would have stopped the sequence before this validator ever runs. But if you're following defensive programming, would it be smarter to return false here? Or that would lead to the validation context being corrupted, because if you return false, then the API will say age is null, when in fact age was not null, it was just less than 18.
I think from my opinion, it will corrupt.
So that's why it's good to return true here.
Yes.
Okay, I'm getting it. So if it is null, we pass over the concern to the not null annotation. If it's not null, then we actually do the check, which is checking whether age is greater than the minimum age, which defaults to 18. Yes? Go ahead.
A question.
Yes.
For the initialize one. So the validator initialization 18. I'm trying to assume they are trying to validate the input from the user. So kama default value ni 18. When you use a 7, and then you validate to know this is less than 18 or not, and then you tell them you are underage or something, because by default the value is 18.
Yeah, I think the value is 18. I'll allow Regan to add, but you can set it when you're defining the annotation. So if you don't pass in a value, it defaults to 18, but you can pass your custom value.
But now see, it means if the user doesn't pass the value, then the validation pass.
If they don't pass a value, I'm expecting the default, it will default to 18, and then the validator will check whether it's less than 18.
And 18 is not less. It is a value that it should pass. What am I thinking? Maybe I'm thinking in the wrong way.
Maybe Regan, you can answer that better than I can.
Okay, let me try.
Yeah.
You see, the 18 is a compile time constant that is backed into the annotation. When you go to the registration request,
and web or services.
Yeah. Yes. Ndio hiyo hapa.
This registration service.
Yes.
Okay.
So kwa minimum age, iko wapi minimum age?
Or the model, the registration request model. I think that's in web. DTO registration request. This one.
Oh, sorry. Yes. So the minimum age, value, the value 18 is a print message. You must be at least 18 years old. So mimi kwangu, I use that method because it works for the project. But there are two problems according to from perspective from perspective ya Kennedy, sawa. The first problem is venye Kennedy anajaribu ku highlight if another developer tries to use minimum age with different value, that one works, but the exact value attribute for minimum age, for example, say I 21, it will work because if you try to initialize, if they use, for example, an email, for example, then the initialize method somehow the initialize it passes whatever the initialize it pass whatever annotation size, or whatever the annotation size in a form.
Yeah, whoever, just go ahead. I don't even need to raise your hand.
So the reusability at that particular, for example, if another developer is using the minimum age, at that stage the reusability is still fine. But then the part which is a concern is that what if the rule needs to change at some time? So if that is the case, annotation values must be compiled time constant. So what you can do is
No, just go ahead. Just go ahead. Actually, your background noise is not that loud. Actually, I'm sure you might think it's disruptive, but it's not. We're able to hear what you're saying. Yeah.
I was saying the part for me to move concern is what if the rule needs to change at runtime? So if that would be the case, then the annotation value must compile time constant. So what we can do is we use the annotation. Okay. If we use the annotation, for example,
Yeah, so you'd have to like write the.
But to just answer whatever Kennedy is asking, I think even if I use their own value, the code will still run.
Okay. But in my opinion, I think yes. Can I just go ahead?
What does it mean? What does it exactly what does it the value in a nutshell? What value is it?
I think it can. Yeah, you reckon you can go ahead?
It is a compile time constant.
I think it allows you to define the minimum.
That is the point.
It's like that at size annotation. If you use at size, you can pass in the value for the size, and then that will be used for the validation logic. Like if you do size, then you can pass in like minimum equals to 32, maximum equals to maybe 45. So while validating this age, this minimum and this maximum will be used for that validation. I think it's just a naming thing, but this would be the equivalent of minimum, I guess. Yeah, by the even the ID is telling us to remove the default, but if we changed it to 32, then the default would not be an issue again. So the problem is we've set the default to 18 and we're using 18. Am I right about that, Regan? Yeah, so if this was 45, if it was a more exotic club where they want like Gen X people, then 45 would actually work with the compiler. But the thing is, this value has to be defined at compile time. It cannot be a runtime thing, but the way to make it a runtime thing, and maybe Kennedy, there's some sample code you've shared before about doing your own custom validation logic. Writing your own constraint validator, I think might allow you to have that as user input, maybe from some configuration file or as part of some environmental change, a change in your environment that allows you to plug in this minimum value and then run your own custom validation code. Like without using this annotation, if we receive the request with the payload, and then it's like doing if-else statements. It's just that we do it more intelligent. I don't know if you remember, Kennedy, you shared some code samples that allows you to do that, where you're not using these annotations from Jakarta validator. Instead, you are receiving the user value and doing the constraint validation on your own within your own business logic. Yeah. Oh yeah, yeah, exactly. Okay. Jakarta validator. And since we also have Patrick here, who is not intoxicated by Spring Boot as all of us are, maybe Patrick, you've written your own custom validation logic, or you just use an equivalent of what Spring Boot does with the @valid annotation. Okay. Oh, okay. So, okay. Oh, this one. Or yeah. This one. Yeah. So. Mhm. Yes. Yeah. So of course, yeah. Also, I think this is somewhat similar to what Regan is doing. Here we have a custom annotation named constraint, and then I'm expecting that later on. Okay, so you define a message, which I think we have. You define the message, and you provide a default for the message. You define groups, which Regan did. You define the groups. Then that also has defaults, and then you define payload, which Regan has done here. And of course, it's an annotation. You have the usual target, retention, and that at constraint. At constraint, I think, is what defines it as Jakarta validation, a candidate here. So the constraint is from Jakarta validation. So maybe we can read a bit of this to understand those fields before we go to customly doing your own validation logic. So yeah, they're saying a constraint. I hope the font is big enough. A constraint on a Java bean is expressed through one or more annotations. An annotation is considered a constraint definition if its retention policy contains runtime, and if the annotation itself is annotated with constraint. Okay, so you have to annotate it with the constraint that qualifies it for use with the Jakarta validation. So this is an example. I just want to understand some of the fields here, which is mainly this value, message, group, and payload. Let's see what those are. So starting with message, every constraint annotation must define a message element of type string. The message element values used to create the error message. So this is the error message that's returned back to the client when validation fails. So see message interpolation for detailed explanation. It is recommended to default message values to a resource bundle key to enable internationalization, but that's a different story. It's also recommended to use the following convention. The resource bundle key should be, okay, so when you're doing internationalization, which is a whole other topic, here we're just doing validation, so I won't go into that. So, so this is the error message that should be printed if validation fails, which, for example, you can see must be at least a value years old. And I see Regan is already using internationalization to pass the actual value. Would this be considered internationalization, by the way? Because messages use the same syntax. If you want to like localize messages that's coming from your backend. Patrick or Regan or Kennedy, it can be considered internationalization. Awesome. Okay. So so it wasn't really. Yes, Patrick. Back to the code sample. It's expression language, by the way. Yeah, that allows you to pass in this. So if you're doing localization and there's user input or some environment things that you need to plug in, you can use this to pass them in. So I think Regan is using them to pass in the value that was defined as the minimum. So if the minimum was 21, we can say must be at least 21 years old. So that you get this string that can be localized, but also this value can be plugged into the localized final string. So if it was Spanish, it would be some Espanol, and then you plug in 21 years old. If years old is still years old in Espanol. But I think it's the same concept. Patrick, is there something you want to add to that? There's a comment going here. Awesome. But your mic today has a problem. I am losing some of your audio. Okay. So we know messages is for error messages, and you can do internationalization for them so that you can plug in values. So let's see groups, which is this one. So every constraint annotation must define groups element that specifies the processing groups with which the constraint declaration is associated. So the types of group parameter is of type class. The default value must be an empty array. If no group is specified when declaring the constraint on element, the default group is considered declared. See groups for more information. Yeah, to be honest, I don't know what this groups thing is. So groups allow you to restrict the set of constraints applied during validation. Groups targeted are passed as parameters to the validate property and validate value method as the method to validate method and constructor constraints. All constraints belong to the targeted group are applied with the validation routine. If no group is passed, the default group is assumed. Groups describe how to define groups on constraint. This is like explaining apples using oranges. This paragraph doesn't explain anything, at least for me. Just seems to be looping around the concept of groups. It doesn't tell us what groups are. Does anybody know what groups are? It's like you're explaining what apples are, and you're like, you know, apples can be used with a fork or a spoon. You can be eaten with a fork or a spoon and can be blended for drinking. You've not explained what the apple is. Regan, maybe because you wrote this, do you know what this groups thing is?
Your group here nilikopi.
Yeah, I understand, because even the documentation is struggling to explain it. Kennedy, Patrick, does any of you or anyone on the meeting know what groups are that can actually explain it in a more understandable way? Or we continue copying it because it's just required for defining the annotation. What's the time it's left? I'm thinking like it can be used to limit the classes that can be used with this validate or something. Oh, so it might end up being related to group sequence, the one Regan was working on. By the way, they sort of have the same name. Yeah, but I think you might be right, because also if you look at the example they've provided, so there's this interface declaration for minimal, and I think minimal is your first level of validation. So you can say start with the minimal validation and then go to the general validation, which checks everything. And Regan also defined his group sequence using those interface declarations. You see here, first check is an interface which defines the first level of validation. And then you have second check, which defines the second level of validation. So you could actually pass in those groups here to define how that validation is going to work using this syntax. So when you're using, I think probably, yeah, in fact, Regan, you're using that feature. So when defining this minimum age annotation, we are passing in groups, this field, and you pass in second check. Yes. Okay, go ahead. You forgot to plug in.
No, I'm running several servers, so
Okay.
nataka tuzipitie pamoja tu.
No worries, no worries.
So it's validation where group sequence comes in.
Yes.
So the validation chain, step by step. So number one, we have the field level annotations. So from the code, we have here the at null,
Yes.
at not blank, and at size.
Yes.
So hizo, they are basic and cheap. So quote unquote, is the field even present or well formed?
Yes.
And then now we come to the constraint validator, which is at the class level validators. So for cross-field logic, for example, does password match confirm?
Hello, did we lose Regan? Oh, okay, I think he was saying his laptop is dying. I think we might have lost him. But I think the thing he was describing is first check and second check defines the levels of validation. So for first check, we are just checking for basic things like whether the payload contains the field we want to validate. Things like not blank, not null. So that would be the first check. And then the second check would be if the field exists in the payload, does that field meet our constraint requirements? For instance, the payload contains age, but is that age greater than the minimum age that we've set? For instance, here we're using 45 as the minimum. Is the age value less than or equal to 45? So I think that is what he was describing. And the way you do that is by passing the group's value, which I see is what we are passing here. So for all of them, we are passing, for all our validators, we are passing the groups field. And this groups field is a way of telling the validator which level of validation this annotation belongs to. So that when it's running validation, it will know which annotations to use for the initial checks and then which annotations to use for second level checks. The only question that I have, and I wish Regan was here to answer it, let me know when he gets back, is how does Jakarta validation know that first check actually represents the first level of validation and second check represents the second level of validation, so that it runs this first before it runs this? Or does it just follow the order of declaration? Because the group definition itself is just a simple interface. It's not very sophisticated. Anybody? Oh, Regan, you're back. You can go ahead, Regan, from where you left off. Regan, can you hear me? I think Regan doesn't know that he's back. Oh, okay. You can hear me.
This thing is swap memory. Oh my days.
No worries. It's computing constraints. So no problem there.
So
yeah.
If I'm back then, you can explain Adwabi. We were at the constraint validator.
Yeah.
So constraint validator is at the class level validators. And for our case, it's a custom constraint validator implementation. So for cross-field logic, for example, does password match confirm password? This only makes sense to run after the individual fields are confirmed and null. And that is basically from, I think, the example we were doing before. And then on step number 3, we have a default or catch-all group. So anything not explicitly grouped runs as a final pass.
Okay.
Then now that leads us to why group sequence exists. So by default, Jakarta validators run all constraints in no guaranteed order. And that is basically, it reports every failure at once.
Yes.
But then that's bad UX, that's bad user experience when number 1, a field is blank. So ninaongea ama nimepotea?
No, I'm here. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Yeah, I can also hear you very well. Just proceed.
So that's bad user experience when number 1, a field is blank. So in this case, you don't want to also report, for example, password does not match, which can't even be evaluated yet, like in the same response. You see? And then number 2, you want cheap checks to fail fast before running expensive or class level checks. So those are the 2 instances when it's a bad user experience. So basically, group sequence lets you define your own validation groups, and it forces them to execute in order. And while it does so, it stops at it stops at the first group that fails.
Okay.
So the first practical structure, sijui kama hii ni kwa the code we were trying to execute last time.
Oh, this one.
No. Oh, we are looking at different things. Let me paste it kwa chat.
This one, I think.
No, yeah. First class, second, exactly that one. So the controller, where is the controller?
So we actually in the auth controller.
Yes. Okay. Post mapping.
Oh, you're referring to your controller. This is the sample we were using last week.
Where is our controller?
So the controller for the registration API.
No, for the code here last week.
Oh, so this is the controller, auth controller. So in auth controller, you're just using...
request exactly up.
Yeah.
You see hapo kwa... No, that's get hapo kwa post mapping, the login.
Yes, this one.
Yes. So what that buys us, number 1 is defensive and stage validation. So by that I mean we get cheap null and then blank checks first, which then is structural or class level checks. The structural or class level check second. So number one, at the first check, itaangalia null or blank. And then ikitoka hapo, itaenda kwa structural or class level checks. And then after that, catch all last.
Okay. What does catch all last do? Because I understand the null or blank check, and the structural check also is something like checking whether the age value is actually less than 18. That third phase, what does that do?
No, it's still kwa hiyo face your stage validation.
So, for example, using the age as an example,
Yes.
when you're doing null or blank check, that's a phase on its own.
Yes.
Where we're checking whether the payload actually
It's
contains.
like, yeah, it's like in stages.
Okay.
So stage 1 null or blank, and then stage 2 is structural or class level, and then after that it goes to catch all.
Okay. What does catch all do?
Which now is okay. Let me see.
Whenever you're ready.
Okay.
Yeah, and then the other thing I'm curious about is how that, I think what you're implying is Jakarta is able to define the order of the checks. So I was just wondering, passing in our custom groups, how those custom groups would affect how the checks are executed, like which phase falls where. Like if using the example here, so for the groups, for instance, with this, let me use the age as an example. For the not null check, which checks whether that field actually exists in the payload, we are specifying it under first check, and then minimum age, we are specifying it under second check. I'm just wondering, does Jakarta itself, of course, Jakarta validation, so we are still using Jakarta validation here. So does Jakarta itself know which annotations to prioritize? And if it already knows how to prioritize the annotations, why do we still need to give it groups? But then if it relies on our grouping, how does our grouping specify the order of execution of the validation steps? I think that's the main thing I'm curious about. How does this grouping thing help us tell Jakarta, start with this validation and then go to this? Or does Jakarta just go and use its own specified order, starting with the blank or null and then going into structural, which is minimum age? Does it already do not null and then minimum age without utilizing this group specification, or does it rely on the group specification? Like if this was first check and this was second, would that change the order of validation? Or is there another point where
let me give it a shot.
Yeah.
Can you open the documentation for at not null? Maybe it could tell us what groups does.
Even the original documentation failed miserably at telling us what groups does.
Oh, yeah.
So yeah, they didn't even document it. Like it's.
Yeah. I thought it was documented, so.
Yeah. The original spec, Erigan, you can go ahead. There's something, Erigan, you're saying.
Okay, so the catch-all route ensures that any request not matching a more specific rule is directed to a default location, for example, for or index file.
Okay.
And it must be placed last in our configuration so that specific intended URLs are not incorrectly swallowed by the default rule.
Okay.
So how we catch all errors No, I don't think in this case may go through like your party how to catch how a catch. So now kwa hiyo question ya does Jakarta know how to prioritize? Yes, it does, and the reason is because acha nisome venye imeandikwa hapa. So Jakarta knows exactly how to prioritize routes, meaning it does not matter what order you declare your Java methods or classes. So unlike some frameworks where a catch-all route must physically be placed at the bottom of a file, Jakarta inatumia strict built-in sorting algorithm zenye ziko based on URL specificity to determine which route, which resource method handles an incoming request.
Okay.
So how does it do the prioritization? So when a request comes in, Jakarta ranks matching routes by evaluating three criteria in order. So criteria number one, literal characters. So it counts the number of exact literal characters in, for example, at path template, and then the route with the highest number of literal characters wins. That is number one. And then number two, path variables are regular expressions.
But I think just before you proceed, I think you are defining request mapping for like routing incoming requests to the specific controller functions.
Isn't that the question ulikuwa unauliza?
Oh no, nilikuwa nauliza at the validation. So let's imagine the request has already come in.
Nimepaste kwa chat ni nini?
Yeah?
Ni kama yes. Whatever nimepaste kwa chat ni kama yes.
Because what I was asking is, we've received the request, it has hit the server, we've determined which controller function is able to handle that request. Now we are evaluating the payload. So when we're evaluating the payload, we check whether the payload has the fields that we need and whether those fields match particular constraints. So for instance, this registration request will be our payload for somebody registering, right? So the routing for the request has already gone to the right controller function, and now we are processing the payload, which is this. And the payload has these fields. So when you are validating, first we check whether these fields exist. I assume that is the first level of validation. And then the second level of validation, we check, okay, the field exists, but is the age greater than 18? Is the password 8 characters or more? So what I was wondering is, when we are validating a field, how does Jakarta prioritize whether to start with the not null or start with the minimum age? And that's
I think it uses a sorting algorithm.
Okay. So okay, elaborate that a bit more. So sorting in which way?
So for example, it doesn't matter the order in which you declare your methods and classes.
Oh, but that, I think that is still request mapping. Like
request mapping.
Yeah, we are still. Somebody has sent a request to /user/id. Now we're trying to find which controller function handles it. Yes, Patrick.
Goes back to the code after the class the registration request.
Yes.
What do we have in password field aware?
So password field, I think it has not blank password is required. Or what are you asking?
Yep. The interface, password fields are where?
Password field, this one?
Yes.
So I think it just declares this get password and get confirmed password.
Okay, go back. So I think at the class level,
yeah.
I think what we do is we have an annotation at the class level, registration request.
Yes.
Yes. Yeah, we have another annotation there. Say in group sequence. And then we have the first one as first check.class. And then we have second. Yes. And then we have, there's also default class. If you want you can now play around. That's still inside the array.
Okay.
Still inside the array.
Oh yeah. Sorry about that. So this is still here.
Yes.
Default.class.
Yes. So what this now will do, when you have your valid registration request, and your variable, Jakarta validator, the specification will require the implementer first take the first check groups, then the second, and lastly the default.
Okay.
If you interchange any of them, you follow that sequence.
Okay. So I think Regan, this is what you showed us last week, using that group sequence annotation.
Yes.
So by the way, this is where I was lost. I was looking for, I was wondering, how do you specify the order of executing the validators? I think last time nilikuwa nimelala kwa class while you were explaining.
I don't know, Patrick amefanya good work ya ku bring out clear.
Yeah. Now I get
because
it.
Now pia mimi nimerealize when I was trying to explain before.
Yeah.
I was mixing the frameworks because me, I was more of like trying to explain the Jakarta REST instead of the MVC.
Yes. So yeah, you're explaining how routing finds the necessary controller function to process the request. I was more worried about when you're validating the payload, how does Jakarta decide in which order to validate the payload? Because remember last time the question you brought was that we should not validate everything all at once. We should split that validation logic into phases. And you brought in this group sequence annotation, which thank you so much, Patrick, for simplifying it for us. And that group sequence annotation is the one that's supposed to help us to specify that order. So what I had forgotten is what you taught me and anybody was on that session last time, and how you specify that order. By the way, I think the way I asked it, maybe I might have not asked it correctly, so it took you back to MVC and request mapping.
Yes.
Is there something you want to add on what Patrick has just shown?
No, I think Patrick may explain vizuri.
Okay. Is there anybody on the session who is lost on whatever we are discussing? Maybe it might require an explanation or an improved description. And on this session, silence usually means that everybody has understood. So if you guys keep quiet, I'll be like, okay, we're in the same page. Okay, so the silence means we're in the same page. Okay, so Regan, back to you. So this, by specifying this group sequence above the the DTO. Let's assume this registration request is our DTO, which I think it is. And now we've told Jakarta using that group sequence annotation which order to follow when doing the validation. So the other thing, so now I think this answers my question. So if I have first check here, not null will be executed before minimum age is checked. So this will be done. So if this fails, this won't be executed. If this passes, then we will execute this. And let me just take this back to 18. So the question I have for you, Regan, is what is the purpose of this other annotation that we have here with the password match? And why is it at class level and not at field level, like these other ones? Password match. Back there, let's check that out. Also, it's also another constraint validation. Password and confirm password do not match. Okay, so it checks. Oh, okay. Okay, I think
basically I think it's more of like a cross-field validation.
Yeah, because it's comparing two fields, so you cannot have it in one field, right?
Yes.
Okay, okay, I think I understand, because I was wondering why do we have it at the class level and not at the field level. So if you want to compare two fields, you define the validation annotation at the class level, and then that will run constraints for fields that already exist in declaration.
And also it will help us with cleaner global error handling.
Okay, okay. So this is another new concept to me. I didn't know that I could do that. So if I wanted to compare two fields, I'll just add the validator at the class level, and that validator will execute based on the fields that are there. I guess the other curious thing is maybe how you wrote the validator so that it obtains the password and the confirm password and compares them. Okay, so this is how you wrote it. You have the password match validator, implements constraint validator. Is valid, just checks that field is not null. And this field is password field aware, so this will give you the password and the confirm password value. Then the thing you're doing here is if it's not null, then we obtain the password, we obtain the confirm password value, and then we check they are not null. If they are null, if any of them is null, return false. Otherwise, we check whether they are the same. Okay. Nice. Okay. I guess what I'm curious about now after this is how does Jakarta know that this is the field that we are checking? These two fields are the ones that we are checking. Does it check the name of the field, or is there some intelligent thing happening in the background? Or does it just check that in this password field aware, when we call get password, we expect a field named password, and we expect another field named confirm password?
I think it does not know like what field we are checking until we tell it openly that the code is in our Java code.
Okay, by adding this annotation at the top.
Yes.
Okay.
Because the annotation is placed at the class level, and simply Jakarta will hand the entire object, the DTO in this case, our validator.
Okay. I think then another hint that I've seen here. So you're implementing password field aware, which will make you override get password and get confirm password, and you're returning those fields as the values. So I guess that could also help with Jakarta finding those specific fields that you want to compare, the two of them. Because this password field aware, you're also using it in the validator. So I saw something like password field aware here. password match and then password field aware. So if
Yes.
nice. Okay, I think I'm getting there. There's a lot of cables. Like we are doing networking. There's a lot of cables moving around, but I'm starting to see where the cables lead.
I think it's because ni different modules here.
Yes.
That we are trying to together.
Yeah. So you have to do some plumbing for it to work. But for this, personally, I've understood. If there's anybody in the meeting who has not understood, I think I've understood how the plumbing is done. So we have the validation annotation at the class level, password match, and the password match itself specifies that it's a password match validator, and password match validator is checking for, and this is the annotation that is using, but the field is checking for is password field aware. So it's not for the password or the confirm password. The field itself is password field aware. And the way that works is if this password field aware interface is implemented by the class where we've declared the annotation, then password field aware will override the methods that give us the actual fields, which means those fields will be extracted, passed into Jakarta validator, and then Jakarta validator will use whichever validation logic we have in password match, which is this validation logic to validate both the password and the confirm password. So I think that's how the plumbing works. At least for me, that's how I understand it. Is there anything you'd like to add, Regan, on this plumbing thing for password match, where you are comparing two fields? Or anyone? Okay. Okay, so I guess that's
maybe.
Yes.
Maybe just to add, for example, in whatever you're saying, the reason why I have to compare two fields is because when you're typing a password is a blind process for the user. So because the characters who are marked behind, for example, either ni stars or ni zile dots,
yes,
it's so easy for the user to make a typo.
Yes.
So now in that case, if a user makes a typo while they are creating a password, the system does not catch it, you see now it will lead to them being permanently locked out of their whatever, whether it's a brand new account they are creating.
Yes.
On the very next time they are trying to log in. So basically, when the reason why I am trying to compare two separate fields so that I am in a position to solve this problem by creating a human verification check. So it gives me inanipatia kama two faces.
Yes.
Whereby I have field one, which is the password. Na hiyo ina contain the user types what they think their password is. And on the other end, it gives me field 2, which now is confirm password. Na hiyo ni the user retypes, they retype their password retype their password, it forms like a muscle memory ama a careful dot.
Yes.
So at the end of the day, if the two fields that are matched correctly, it proves that the user exactly knows what characters they typed. But then if that does not match, then this code will allow me to catch the mistake instantly before saving an accidental typo for our database.
Okay. Yeah, I think that explains it really well. The only thing for me, I would try to do this at the client level. Before it hits the server, I would probably try to validate Although if you are responsible backend developer, you would not trust the front end developer to do this. So, so the responsible thing to do is to do it the way you are doing, which is to validate it on the server, so that if somebody sets a password and they are not they set it in a way that they'll easily forget and get locked out, then you create a situation where they are less likely to create a password that they'll forget, or to accidentally create the incorrect password. But if the backend developer is also working on the front end, then you could also do it on the form level, where before you submit the form, you check the 2 fields, and then you're able to respond to the client. But for web, maybe the way web development is structured, I don't do any web development, so at least front-end web development, so I might not be the best to explain this. But I think you have this components thing where each component can be like its own complete service. It has like a back end, it has its own front end, it has its own business logic, and every component is independent. So the component that has the username and password could be checking with the server to confirm whether the username and the password are the same, but then responding to the client live. But if I was writing both the front end and the back end, I would probably try to do that username and password check before submitting the payload to the server side. But that's just a design thing. But if somebody else is doing the front end, again, I insist your approach is the best one, because you wash your hands of the front end developers' mistakes. Yeah, by designing it like that.
Kwani, the assumption you're making there is that front end and back end don't communicate, the two developers.
I am not a believer in human communications. I've seen how front-end developers and back-end developers communicate, and it's not very healthy.
I mean, delivering the system is a team effort. I mean, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's a team effort, but it's better if the teams are split. I mean, that's the whole reason why they brought microservices, so that people would interact less. So if maybe the front-end developer works across your desk, and you can just reach over and tell them, maybe, but developers don't communicate as much, so it might be tricky. Yeah.
But then it also I think the communication is during refinement of the feature. So if you're refining the feature together, where you get to refine the front-end task, then refine the back-end together, so that when the separate dev teams go to work, they know what they're working on. I think at that point, you can trust the front-end or the back-end. But then if you're not in communication, I think defensive programming such as this is the best approach.
Yeah, and in most cases you're not in good communication. So in most cases you'll find yourself doing defensive programming.
I encourage teamwork. So before you work on a feature, like let's refine it, let's discuss it first.
Yeah.
So that when you go like silos, like we know what you're working on, so that there is no conflict.
You have good people skills. If you have poor people skills like me, you'll try to just implement it and never talk to anybody about it. Just tell them we have validation. You just write to the CSS. Don't try to write validation. Yes.
I get the idea. I get the idea around cross-field validation, because you use it when 2 fields are dependent on each other. So validating one depends on another field. And password and confirm password is a good illustration of that concept.
Yeah, I mean, the way Rican has done it is really good, and it's really well structured, because normally I'd probably try to write this on the service or the controller, get the password, get the username, then compare them. but doing it like this is more structured, because it falls under the same validation logic as checking whether the field is blank, checking for nulls, so and then arranging that validation logic in with using group sequences, I think makes for a really excellent design. I've learned plenty today. So this is awesome. Anybody want to add to the discussion? Okay, so there's another thing I saw here while I was scrolling is it looks like, Regan, you already did this group sequence setup, but you did it a bit differently because I'm seeing you have an interface declaration within the class declaration, and that interface declaration actually has the group sequence annotation, and it defines the validation order. In fact, you have registration request as one of so you have validation requests as part of your validation order. I think that also makes me curious. But let me just ask, why do you have this interface declaration inside the actual DTO? And why is it the one holding your group sequence setup and not an annotation at the class level? And of course, here you've explained. Yes, go ahead. Go ahead, Rita.
For my case, the reason why I would say I use that formula, that approach, is because you see, for Jakarta validation, it executes all constraints at the same time. So by using a nested interface alongside a group sequence, that will help me to force Jakarta to validate the fields in a step-by-step order. So the part of the reason why I use that approach was because, you see, without an explicit order, Jakarta it evaluate all fields simultaneously. Now that will create a terrible user experience. For example, if a user submits, for example, a registration form with an empty password field, they will see multiple conflicting errors all at once, which in this case, let's say if the password cannot be blank, password must be 8 characters long, because sasa unajua ina check kwa not blank size, and then at password matches. So if we end up showing the user about the length the mismatch on the field that they haven't filled out yet, it becomes confusing to them. But then by ordering my validation, and in that format, it allows me to, it ensures that the basic check in a pass before complex business logic in answer to execute. Sijui kama nina answer in the question.
Yeah, I definitely. I think you've answered why we need the group sequence and why you've implemented it that way. Maybe the other thing I'm curious about, which even as I look at the code, there's more curiosity coming, because I'm seeing that in your validate annotation, so we'll discuss this, but let's stick to this part a bit so you can discuss it a bit more. The thing I was curious about is, based on what Patrick showed us, you have the option of having this group sequence annotation at the class level. Of course, both of these approaches will help you define the order in which the validation logic will be executed. I was just curious why you didn't take this approach that Patrick has showed us of having the annotation at the class level of the model you're validating, and instead declaring an interface and then call order validation and then defining that group sequence setup. I'm just curious why you decided to define an interface for it instead of just having it at the class level. I think somebody wants to. Yes, Patrick?
Okay, for the interface, I think it is there for to be used by other classes. For example, you can have another DTO, and you want it to follow the same sequence.
Yes.
So you implement the interface so that it inherits the annotation group sequence and the order of the sequences.
Oh, so you inherit the interface at the DTO level.
Yeah.
Okay. That's interesting. Anything you want to add? Continue explaining on that.
Okay. I also think that it is possible to say we fade fast, so that when we encounter one failure, we can return immediately. I think it's possible.
Also, I thought that was the default behavior. If fast check fails, validation fails, and if you encounter one failure in one individual field, instead of checking any other field in fast check, it just fails.
Yes.
Okay.
I think that's possible.
Do you know how to do it, or are you also saying out of curiosity?
That one I don't know how to do it.
Yeah.
But I know Spring will have to do doing the configuration file. Maybe Quarkus or Jakarta, I think you have to implement some interface.
Or that allows you to specify that if one of the fields doesn't match the validation logic, don't bother checking any other field in this particular stage.
Yes.
Okay.
All of those things, they are requirements many developer will need. So I think they are available.
Yeah. Regan, any clue on that? Is it something you've explored?
Not at the level of like co-explain.
Okay. No worries. I think that also can be homework for us. Find a way to configure the validation logic such that if one of the fields fails validation, don't check any other field at that phase. But at least for now, we've achieved first level validation. So if first check fails, second check will not execute. So I guess the next level which Patrick is bringing up is if the first field in first check fails, don't proceed checking any other field in the first check phase. Instead, just fail. And also, Patrick has explained really well why this annotation might be useful. You can use it to inherit the order of evaluation, which means maybe Regan, it would have been best if this interface was not declared in the registration request. If you declared it externally so that you can use it with any other DTO. Am I right about that?
I'm not so sure if we go with that approach, it might work.
Okay, why?
But we can try.
No, if we are just talking the code design, if the purpose of order validation is to define the order in which our validation logic is executed, and let's assume you don't have registration request as part of your validation order. So let's assume you just have first check, second check. We'll talk about why you have this later. But if all we had was first check and second check, and it was wrapped in this order validation, and this first check and second check, of course, we can use it with another DTO and another DTO, and then we just inherit that order validation like Patrick was saying, and that would allow us to not redeclare a group sequence everywhere. So we declare it once in order validation, and then we use it in every DTO, and every DTO now will be running first check and second check in that order. Would that help, or that would create more problems? Again.
I'm not sure. I'm not sure.
Okay.
Because I've not tried it in that way.
Okay. Patrick, what do you think? Patrick, if you are there.
Saying your thinking is correct.
Yeah. I think that will allow better code organization. Thank you for that. My next question is, so when we did, in fact, we should not be doing it twice here. I think this might actually be the thing that causes problems, because you have group sequence here and you have group sequence here. And this order validation, I think, Regan, you're using it a bit differently. Instead of having the DTO implement order validation, instead you're using it for the validator annotation. So we'll get to this. Just to exhaust my questions about this declaration is, so maybe let me start with Patrick. Why are we using default here? What does default represent? When we have first check and second check, which we've already defined, what does this default represent? Patrick?
This one I was just making it aware that it exists.
Okay.
So, for example, if you want to start with all the ones that are not declared, that don't belong to a group, and then the second group is first, and then second. Or do you want to have a first, then default, and then second?
Okay.
Because if we don't, if I don't mention about default, we don't know if it's possible to have it.
Okay. So I'll assume this default means if I have another annotation here like not empty, and I specify just a message, so maybe they say username must not be empty, but then I fail to define a group for it, this will be executed with default.
Yes. And it will be executed as the last one, according to now what we have.
Okay. I think I get it now. So if we don't specify the group, this is where default will be useful. And if we want, we can decide that we want to start with default. So in that case, default would be here. So this means this will be checked first, and then we'll go to first check, and then we'll go to second check. Regan, what do you think about this default thing? Because I noticed you're not using it. Yes. Go ahead.
I think Patrick's.
Just interject. Also, it's not a must to have the default.
Yes.
Because every constraint that doesn't have a group, it belongs to the default group by default.
Also, you don't even need to specify it.
Yes.
Okay.
The reason why I mentioned it is just to make it aware that it is there, you can use it.
And also, by the you mentioning it also means if you know it, you can be specific about when you want default to run. Because I assume yes, by default it runs last.
In this case, I think it will run last, or it might not run. I don't know.
Okay, let's see. The documentation is saying default validation group, unless a list of group is explicitly defined. Constraint belongs to the default group. Validation applies to the default group. Most structural constraints should belong to the default group. But this doesn't say about default order of execution. But for me, I'd be happy to know that it's there and I can use it to define when I want execution to happen. But I hope that I was hoping that the documentation would give us the default behavior. I think that would have been good. Back to you, Regan. You are disrupted a bit there. I just wanted to get your thoughts on default.
No, but I think Patrick already said it. Because Mimi, from what I understand, is that when you're writing Java, every class that you write serves as a default validation group. But then in Jakarta validation, the group is represented usually by a built-in interface. So now when you add a validation constraint, for example, not null armor size, to a field you are trying to a field that you do not explicitly type, Jakarta most of the time tends to secretly assign the constraint to the default group behind the scenes.
Okay.
Which now, for example, the reason why we will use this approach is because it gives us an absolute granular control. So it puts us in a position whereby we know exactly when every single annotation executes, because there is nothing that is left hidden in Jakarta. Na kwa hiyo nini ya SAM, I think the dangerous trap ya kutumia default group is that if you choose to use a default group inside the group sequence, then it means that wewe kama developer, you need to be very disciplined. Because if you accidentally forget to add, for example, groups is equals to, let's use an example, for example, step 1, to basic constraints kama null, the basic constraint is instantly demoted to a default group.
Okay.
So that means a check for an empty field will run at that means that a check for an empty field will run at the very end of your sequence instead of the beginning, which now will lead to completely breaking your order the pipeline.
Okay.
Mimi, I think that is what I would add.
Which again, I think with your point, then it might not be advisable to even rely on default, because one, we don't know the order in which it will be executed. We don't know if by default it's executed first or last if we don't declare it here. And two, just like you explained, it might lead to a situation where you pass in something critical like testing whether the field actually exists, and having it executed last, which would break the logic.
Yes.
Yeah, so I think I agree with you. It's best to, yes, Patrick made us aware of it, but I think it was best if it's erased from our memory and instead we become explicit with our specification. Okay, so just on that.
I think there's a question. Oh,
there's a question.
I think I've got a jib. No, I think I've got a jib.
Oh, okay. So Steve was asking, clarify if I'm wrong, a group let you apply different subsets of validation constraint depending on context rather than always validating everything on an object at once. Within the validation levels, you can as well have a specific order to follow in validation. I think that's sort of what we are covering. So you can define the order using group sequence, or you can if you don't define the order, of course, everything falls to default, and default is unspecified in terms of which order it will follow in validating your things. So anyway, the other question I have, when we are still on this DTO, before we leave the DTO, is why do you have the DTO defined as part of the group sequence? Riga. Because the way I thought about it is, the way I thought about it is you use this to define the order of execution, which is specified by this interface declaration, like first check and second check. Just curious why we still have request DTO here. Or was this a typing error? Or was this a way for this to handle?
No, I think it's okay. The reason is because the DTO class is the default group.
Okay. Oh yeah. So if any field in our DTO doesn't have a group specification, it will be executed at this stage.
Yes.
Okay. 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 I think I get it. So just in case a developer forgets to specify the group order or the groups field for a field, then that field will be checked last. But we've agreed it's best to specify the order. Don't leave anything to chance, because also you might leave something that's critical, right? And
yes.
Yeah, so you end up checking whether a field exists at the end of validation when you're supposed to actually check it at the beginning of the validation. Then you end up breaking your code. So this is awesome. So I guess with your specification, then we don't need to have this group sequence declaration again at the class level. Instead, we can just rely on this inline interface declaration. So let's try and now go to where this request is being used, which is to actually handle a request. Oh yeah, I think order validation. I think this is where I found it. So here we are at the controller level. And at the controller level, we have this post mapping, which handles registration, and it receives registration request. This one. This registration request at the request body, and we use that request to perform the actual registration for a user, for a potential user, let's say. And then once that whole thing is done, then we start to compose the request. I guess this is the hetio stuff, where you specify the resource URI for the user that has just been registered, and then you return that with the response entity. But as we go through this code, if you are looking at it and you have questions for Regan or for any question related to the code, you can just ask, and then we'll talk about it. So just curious, so within the validated annotation, which is the annotation that specifies that this request body actually has validators configured, I have two questions for you regarding here is, why using both annotation, validated and valid? Is there any risk of conflicting them? Because I think I assumed that they do the same thing. They all signal to Spring that that request body has validation embedded. Then it should actually run some validation before passing control back to the actual controller. Is there a reason why you used both annotations?
Yes. So the reason is because Spring and Jakarta handle two entirely different parts of the validation process. So in that case, they are teaming up to solve the limitation on how Spring handles the validation groups.
Okay, so can you repeat that?
Wait. So in this case, they are working together so that they are teaming up to solve a limitation in which how do I put it? Let me collect words.
Yeah, because I think both of them are used to signal to Spring that we actually have some validation for that payload. Don't just allow it to be processed. Check the validation. Pass control back to Jakarta validation first. Allow Jakarta to validate the fields, and then if Jakarta tells you that there's no constraint violation exception or there's nothing wrong with the fields, then pass control back to the controller and allow us to call for instance, call the registration service here to actually do the actual registration. But normally I usually found myself using @valid, and then I think the example we did last week, we had this validated annotation at the class level. So I was just curious, what is the difference between these two and why we're able to use them together?
You see,
yeah.
Validated will select the custom step-by-step sequence. The other one, @valid, it triggers the validation engine to inspect the incoming JSON payload.
Okay. So
kama venye tu nilikuwa nimeexplain mara ya kwanza, they are teaming up.
Okay. So valid triggers the validation engine, and validated passes in the...
And then in a select the step-by-step group sequence.
Oh, so this plugs in the group sequence.
Yes.
Okay. So this will trigger the engine, but this will tell the engine validate in this order. That's why you're passing this order validation class, which actually has the group sequence annotation. Okay. I think that explains it. Last time I misunderstood it. I thought validated is used at the class level to tell Spring that all these controller functions have validation on them, so please check the request body as they come in. But I think it might still be serving that purpose. But also I think it's helping us plug in this group sequence declaration that allows us to tell the validation engine in which order to validate the fields. So I think that's super useful. So let me just look at, but then I'm seeing with the
but also you can still remove the valid annotation if you want to clean, if you want to clean your controller parameter.
Okay, if you don't want it to be noisy. So validated will still trigger the engine, so you don't need that valid. Okay. But the difference between this and valid is it has a field, and that field allows us to specify one or more validation groups to apply the validation. So this actually allows us to pass in group sequence. Okay, that's cool. So the difference is with valid, you are not able to pass in group sequence, but validator allows you to pass in group sequence. You can use them together, or you can get rid of valid and just use validator. Okay. Awesome. So I think this is the second part that I had questions about the validation thing, and now you've specified it. Okay, I see you have some tests for us at least. I was worried. I thought maybe we would not have some tests. So let's just execute some of the tests and see whether we didn't break anything, and also see some of this in action. So this one failed to load application context, registration controller, what cannot mock this class registration service. Why? Please open an issue on GitHub. No, tell us why. Tell us why you can't find registration service. I think okay, but registration service is a bean, so do you have a clue why we can't find registration service?
That is why nilishare your repository.
Maybe, which Spring Boot version is this? Because I see you still have access to mockbin, which was deprecated. So illegal. Java 25 is not supported by the current version. Oh, I'm running Java 21 on my system. Could actually be a compiler thing. Let me drop this down to 20. Oh wait, you actually have 17. Why are you talking about 25 at the compiler? So this one is talking about Java 25 and
no, hata mimi I got that error. I got that error. Sijui nilifanya wapi. Ikakuwa sawa.
Okay. Let me see if I change. It could actually be, by the way, it could be, in fact, let me just, before I change this, it could be that if you run with Maven, everything happens. This could be an IntelliJ thing. Let me do Maven test. If I do Maven test, let's see if Maven will be able to execute the test. Yeah, Maven is, wait, okay, Maven is also failing. So it's not an IntelliJ thing. Java 25 is not supported. But who has asked for Java 25? If you're not running, if you're not sure why you are getting this error, please open it. No, I don't want to open an issue. Tell me why. Why? So I'm seeing test execution, application context failure, failed to load, source web app context. What? But who has asked for Java 25? You are seeing this disclaimer because Mockito is configured to create inline blocks. You can learn about inline blocks and their limitation under item 39 of the Mockito class Java doc. Okay, Mockito exception. Okay, so I think Mockito has a Java 25 feature, and we are not supposed to be having access to that feature if you are running any version below 25. But then that would mean that's affected by whichever Mockito version we are using. Let's see. So the Mockito version we are using comes with the Spring Boot. Spring Boot, so we are not even specifying the Mockito version ourselves. Yes? Yes.
Kwenda hapo kwa setting kwa ID hapo juu. Hii side ingine ya right. No, the other.
This
funga
one.
hiyo.
Okay. This one.
Project structure. Yeah, project structure.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, that one 25.
You see, it's IntelliJ. Okay. So would this, if I choose 21, me choose 21?
Yeah, you can choose it, depends on the project, but unaweza weka 21 uone kama ita run.
Okay, because also my system has 21, and maybe I can also go ahead and be specific here about compiler version 21. And I don't know, is this Spring Boot version low? I'm the only one who thinks it's low. I think we are in 4. I think that's why you have access to mockbin. Yeah, 4.1. But we can still use 3.34 unless the issues persist. Then we'll move to 4.1 and see if that fixes it. Okay, let's try this again. Clear Maven test. If it persists, we'll upgrade Spring Boot, which will change the underlying Mockito version. Okay, it's persisting. We can change, I think we can change the Spring Boot version, which will change the Mockito version. Maybe that will clear it. Kennedy, what do you think?
Okay, me, I'm not even thinking. Kwani hera inasema aje?
It's asking for Java. Okay, I don't know if it's still asking for 25. Let's see. So it's saying This is the Mockito exception. So we are not, in fact, this is where the failure is coming from. Let me just go back to the test. So this declaration of registration service is using mockbin, which will have Mockito inject the registration service. But now, let me go back to that. So now when it's trying to do that, that fails. Here you can see failed to load application context. Yes?
You change the ID default Java and you run it on a terminal. So terminal might be using your system Java.
Oh, okay. So I go to the terminal. But Kennedy, you've gotten the error that I'm talking about. It's using that mockbin annotation is failing, and Mockito is saying it's failing because it's using some Java 25 thing. Here, it's saying if you're not, Mockito cannot mock this class, a registration service. If you are not sure why you are getting this error, please open an issue on GitHub. A Java 25 JVM. So it's specifying these things which are not what is in my system. Kennedy, that was just for you. Let me just watch what Nani is saying here. If Kennedy, that gives you any insight, you can bring it up ndio tuone kama it will resolve the thing. So I'll go to registration API and let me make that full screen. And Maven test. Okay. It still fails, Patrick.
Saying the Java version that you change in the IDE.
Yeah.
But not on the system. So when you are using the terminal, you are using the system's Java.
Oh, wait. I forgot. Thanks for that. I forgot I'm running Java 25. I already upgraded to 25. Okay. Okay. Let me see if I specify 25 now. I'm on 25. Sorry about that. I forgot that I upgraded 25. 25. Oh, so actually that log was correct because my system has 25. Then let's give it another try. Okay, so I guess it's not a Java issue. Still failing. I think if we upgrade yes.
What if we try to go with this methodology?
Which one?
Because we migrate to Mockito bin instead of mockbin.
Yes, and that will require us to upgrade the Spring Boot version from 3.3 to 4.1.
Yes.
Okay, let's go to 4.1. I think it's 4.1.0. Yeah.
So then that will need us to update the imports and the annotation at the top of our test file.
Yes. So let's upgrade first, and then we'll get the exceptions that come from that, and then we can upgrade them. So I'll just clear this and Maven clean install. I think that should bring it in. Oh wait. Okay, so it looks like I already had Spring Boot 4.1 in my system. Okay, so this is good. We are getting the errors. Registration, user registration repository test. Okay, yeah. And now WebMVC test is gone. And mockbin is gone. So now I can use Mockito bin. I didn't know that they deprecated the WebMVC test in Spring Boot 4.1. So I guess that means we can't use it here. So we'll use, we'll extend with the Spring extension. Or is there a replacement annotation for WebMVC test? MVC. Okay, there's no enable WebMVC. Okay. Let me just get rid of the annotation. So extend with the Spring extension. Is there another annotation we need here? Okay, we'll know if there's another annotation. Object mapper, we should still have object mapper. Spring Boot 4.1 doesn't have object mapper. Okay, that means we have to bring it in manually. Go to Maven Central, Maven repository, and we can get Jackson.
No, Nini,
yes.
Kwa hiyo POM, uko na nini gani na gani? Because object mapper should be on the Spring Web.
Yeah, it seems they removed. Okay, so there is. Okay, so this Regan is using. Actually, this is Regan's code base. So it's using modularization, and under that module where we are running the test, we don't have. So we only have starter test and H2 validation. There is starter web.
Okay, kama kuna starter web, basi
Jackson should be there.
I thought so. If not, maybe okay, the Spring Boot 4 they were trying to separate everything to pull Kenya unataka. I don't know if Jackson was also separated. I thought it was included in the web. If you go to the Spring,
I think I think they changed the package.
They changed the package.
They changed the yes. Just try to delete the one and you see whether it will suggest to you the package.
So they are not using com.fastXML. So object. Oh, come on. Object map. Yeah, you are right. So it's under tools.jackson. This is the thing I hate about framework. If you're using Jackson, why are you changing the package structure for Jackson?
No.
Yes.
Actually, Jackson separated the object mapper to different mappers. So there's JSON mapper, there's XML mapper. Yes.
Oh, so it's Jackson that actually did this.
Yes, yes.
Oh.
So this one is just there to help with the migration.
Okay. But after almost 100 years of using object mapper, why would they do that? That's like intentionally trying to torture developers.
I think it is the story of restricted reflection. So they are trying to shed a lot of baggage that they carry, so that they have to maintain.
Oh, okay.
So they have done a lot of work doing that to state this and also make to remove deflection, also make maintenance to be easier.
Okay. So the JDK is making changes that would make it difficult for them to continue using the old style of reflection.
Yeah, yes, they are tightening this to do with the reflection. So there's a lot of noise around that.
Oh, okay.
So if they are removing things about reflection, what are nini aje? What are serialize hizo request aje to objects? Because I thought they are relying solely on reflection.
Yeah, Jakarta is a lot of reflection, so there's a lot of noise.
So they're trying to reduce the amount of reflection that they're using, not that they won't use any reflection at all.
No, they're just reducing.
Okay.
From the JDK folks.
Okay. I think for me personally, I'd be lost because I don't do any reflection at all. In fact, I don't think I've ever done reflection. So it's always been somebody else's problem. Kennedy, does that answer your question? Ama imekuongezea maswali?
Yeah. Okay, I haven't read anything about Jackson lately. But I think Patwa may trigger something I should look online.
Yeah.
On a WhatsApp.
Yeah. Jackson for me is one of those libraries that always work. So I never have to bother about the internal mechanics, whether to trust it or not. It's also very old, which means it has garnered a lot of trust, and there's less motivation to look inside, trying to see what's happening. And also, if you look inside, you'll see reflection, which can be, what is the word? It's like you're looking into or staring into the abyss, which maybe that would be the right reference. The internal mechanism is so complex that it will make you scared of using the library, or you just end up not understanding what is happening. So but who helped us with this? Thanks for pointing this out. I didn't know about them changing this. I might have code by the way that's using tools.jackson, but I probably didn't even notice that the package structure is different. So thanks for that. But now we have the correct imports. So we have Mockito bin, we have object mapper here. And let's see if our test is able to compile now. Okay. So we have some compilation error for this user repository test. Let me see if I can find it.
I think umetoa Sam. Do you think it's because umetoa the web MVC?
I have not removed any dependency. I've only added. In fact, I haven't even added. I haven't interfered with the POM. Let me check the diff. Maybe I have removed it and I forgot. Git diff. So I just changed the compiler version and the Spring Boot version. So I didn't remove the web MVC. Which, by the way, you make a good point. If I don't have access to JBE test, this is not deprecated. I should have access to it. So why don't I have access to it? It's under a different package structure. No, this should be available. Unless this module doesn't have the test dependencies that would bring that in. Which I think even when MVC is probably still there, it could probably be that the POM for this module doesn't have that dependency. So this user repository is under registration persistence, which I think is this module. And the POM for that module has, it has starter test. And it has data JPA. Starter test should come with the data annotation, right? It should come with data JPA test. So what the hell?
I will go back to the user repository test.
User repository test. I think it's under persistence, right? Repository, then user repository test. Yes. So for some reason it can't see this annotation. And personally, I suspect it's because of modularization. could be a modularization thing. And then, like I said at the beginning, I've never used Spring modules, even the JDK modules. I've only used it with the JavaFX because you have to use modules and work in JavaFX, because JavaFX is not in the JDK and all that. But I've never like intentionally used it. So when it's causing weird behavior like this, I'm helpless in debugging it. Because if you have Spring Boot standard test, this one, if you have this should bring in data JPA test notation. And you even have that Spring Boot strategy data JPA, that should bring in the annotation. So I don't understand why this annotation is not available within this module. The only explanation is I don't know how modules work. So maybe there's a way you're supposed to like specify something somewhere that would
I have a question.
Yes.
What if then will that even work?
What is it?
We try to explicitly register the Java time module inside the out control.
Inside there, I lost you there for a minute.
Kwa modules uende kwa out
Modules
controller.
Where is that?
No, iko kwa modules info.
But I was expecting to see modules info for each module here, and I'm not seeing that. So Spring doesn't depend on that modules info file. Otherwise, how would it know that these are modules? How is that specified? I thought it would that would require the modules file. Persistence, service, web, skipped because persistence failed. Persistence has all the dependencies necessary, but it can't see. It has become blind. It doesn't know that it has these two dependencies. By the silence, I think a majority of us don't use Spring modules. Yes, set accessible true now triggers a warning by default and will throw exceptions. Yes?
Maybe you can try to synchronize with the IDE. The IDE is not seeing the dependency.
Yeah, so we see whether the IDE is able to see the dependencies.
Yes.
Okay.
Synchronize, you see.
Okay, so the ID seems to already be in sync. It usually shows like a thing here that allows you to trigger sync, but it's not showing today. Which for me, if I don't see, it's usually somewhere here. If I don't see it there, it usually indicates that the ID has seen it. But also one way is to try and execute a test. So if we try to execute a test, I think it's giving us the same behavior. Java cannot compile module common, configured for that. Fallback SDK version 20 does not support required JVM target 25. So I think we need to again specify the compiler version here as well.
It's when you changed the ID version.
Oh, I changed it to 21. Okay. Let me try changing it to 25. Please add JDK 8 or later. What? I've specified 25. Yeah, 25. Use 25. Okay, project. Okay, the project level 25. Apply. Okay. Are we okay now? Okay, so package Spring Framework boot auto configure domain does not exist. Entity scan.
Sam,
Yes.
mi sijui mbona naona kama shida iko kwa nini
Kwa?
hiyo controller test.
Under web. Controller test, this one. So where would the problem be?
Ngoja ni
Because these being modules, they should work independently. Like web should not affect persistence, and persistence should not affect service.
Have we implemented nini? Time serialization.
Time serialization, what is that? You have me.
You see, we need to ensure that the Jackson handles, for example, in our case, Java 8 kwenda juu.
Oh, wait. Yeah, but the Jackson version that we're using comes with Spring. So since we've moved to Spring 4.1, it should come with the most recent version, at least the version that matches Spring 4.1. So I think it should be okay since 4.1 supports 21 or later. So
because the reason for that concern is because our test methods zina rely kwa the object mapper to read ama write the JSON payloads.
Okay, that would be great if the tests themselves were compiling. But you see, even the tests are not compiling. Like we can't even find test dependencies, despite them being available under the module. Like this has data test, which contains data JPA test, web MVC test, but we cannot use the JPA test annotation here. For some reason, it can't see it. For me, if I'm to diagnose, I think it's a modularization thing. There's some configuration thing that's probably missing while using Spring modules. And since I don't know Spring modules and I've never used them, I don't know how to approach the problem. Personally, I feel like it's a Spring modules thing. Because in a normal project, if we had this dependency, we would have this annotation, but we don't have that annotation. Are we together?
Yes. So it's a come to Jesus moment of, do we still want to use Spring modules? I think that's what we should be asking. Or is there something in Spring modules that we don't know how to use? Personally, I don't know anything about Spring modules. Yes, Patrick?
Can you go to the dependencies again?
For which module?
For persistence. The one with the white.
Yeah, these are the dependencies. Data H2 and starter test.
So Spring Data JPA will pull the Data JPA test.
A starter test, I think, is the one that will pull the data JPA test annotation.
What happens if we want the Spring Boot starter data JPA test?
I don't know. Is there a starter data JPA test? Let me see. I didn't know this. If that is the case, then that would solve our problem. So Spring Boot starter data JPA test. Oh, yeah, there is data JPA hyphen test. Okay, that's what we were missing. Yes, that brings it. So that means even with the web MVC, instead of refactoring this to, so instead of refactoring this to use extensions, we can still use web MVC test, but in the dependencies we need to bring in. Okay, so okay, I didn't know those test dependencies were moved into their own individual modules. So this should be starter web MVC test, this one. If I import, so that should bring in web MVC test, right? So should be in a different dependence, a different package, I think. Web MVC test, yeah. So now it's in test auto configure. And of course, object mapper is in that new dependence, that new package, which is tools.jackson. Okay, I think Patrick has solved this for us. So if we change those imports, that fixes compilation for those tests. So let's see if all the tests execute. Okay, so only one test is failing, which is web, and it's failing due to auto-configure domain does. I think it's a compilation error, registration API application. Okay, so it's a compilation thing, which makes me think this entity scan is now on a different package. I don't know if it's Kennedy who brought this up, but it seems they changed how these modules are organized inside Spring Boot. So now, if you had particular imports, the imports are all mixed around. So finding the right spot becomes difficult. Okay, so now we are back to no being named entity manager, that is under registration controller test, I think. Yeah. So registration controller test, if we execute any of these, I think, but okay, what is entity manager doing here? We're using a mock of user repository. Conditional. Okay, take me to the problem. So here we have error creating JBE shared entity manager factory, but this is a web MVC test. What? Yeah, we're using a mock of a user repository, which means we don't need the entity manager. No being entity manager factory. Error creating JBE. Okay, this is super strange. Could not component required a being named entity manager. Which component? Does this test rely on entity manager at all? Regan, did you use entity manager for this test anyway?
No.
Yeah, I mean, the way I see it, you're not using. So why is it failing? And which even the name of the entity manager looks a bit strange. I think it's something new. JBE shared entity manager factory. Cannot resolve reference to entity manager factory. Nobody is referring to entity manager factory. Maybe it's this annotation. Maybe it's this web MVC test annotation. Not necessarily like the whole annotation. Maybe the fact that we are specifying the controller, maybe it's trying to bootstrap the whole controller. Let's see. Okay, that doesn't solve it. Does it? Going down. So is it the same? Test class, location, failed to load application context caused by creating bin. What is this JPA shared M entity factory? I think this is a Spring. Okay, last time I blamed it on Spring modularization and I was wrong. So let me just Google it first. Okay. Okay. No, but to anybody who's facing it might help. You only saw the first part of the log. If you scroll down almost, and then you'll see a more specific log pointing you towards the answer. Okay. No bin named entity manager factory, but we are not using entity manager in the test. So again, what? This is a mock of user repository, and it looks like we're not even using the user repository itself for this test to simulate anything. I think that means we can actually get rid of it. Unless the controller itself has, let me bring back the controller class. I don't think the controller itself is referring to the repository, which is good. And also the registration service, we're only using a mock of registration service. And if we're using a mock of registration service, then if we're using the mock, do we need the field? I don't think we need the field if we're using the mock. Oof, still asking for that entity manager.
Sam.
Yes.
Let's try to clean the main application class, because from the research yenye nafanya, inasema Spring Data JPA is being accidentally triggered using your context boot up.
Okay.
So for the very reason that we have enable JPA repository in our main class, if the annotation directly, that annotation force Spring to look for database repository every single time any test runs.
Okay. And the reason why we have it in your application is because of the Spring modularization thing, because usually you don't need to have it.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, it's because of the Spring modularization.
Okay. And if we get rid of it, will that break modularization?
If we get rid of it, okay, will it break? Maybe let's try that first.
Yeah, because usually even entities can.
Because now you see the challenge right now is that whenever it scans for them, it realizes that there is no single time any test runs.
Okay.
Even when even a web/test test.
Okay, so if we get rid of that, actually, things are okay. The first test passes, this one fails, but it executes. At least it's failing from an assertion. of this, not finding error in the field, and then the other test passes. So actually it works if we get rid of those annotations. So I think it's those annotations that are forcing Spring to load up Entity Manager even when it's not needed. Which again, we might fix it, it fixes our test, but then the application is not able to execute it because you've broken modularization. But that is determined from knowing how modularization works. So here I'm just assuming. But I guess since we are out of time, I guess that gives you a hint as to why those tests were failing. I mean, why the application itself was failing. I think you mentioned that's one of the reasons why you shared the repository.
Yes.
So maybe I can commit this diff, which will have the upgrade to Spring 4.1. It will have the changing of the import, the package structure for like Jackson and the other WebMVC and data JPA test. And then now your homework will be to see whether by removing those annotations at the main application and having your tests execute properly, whether that breaks modularization, and see ways of having your tests execute without trying to import everything and at the same time modularization working for you. Because I'm seeing you have something like something that's like entity scan. So I think you're using this to limit the component scanning to this module.
Let's remove even that entity scan.
So we just leave enabled JPA repository. Okay, and this won't break modularization.
Yes. Okay, I'm not sure.
Yeah, that's saying your homework will be to check whether by removing those annotations, yes, your tests are now executing properly, but does modularization still work in your project after? So since we are out of time, I think that will be your homework. Otherwise, I'll keep people here until 2 a.m.
No problem.
Yeah. So maybe you can try and do that refinement, whether now the tests are executing smoothly. But here they are passing, they're failing on their ID, which is very weird. So if I execute this, 2 of the tests are passing, 1 is failing. But if I execute them jointly, like that, it seems like all of them are passing. And that was cached. Let's see. Oh, okay, it was a cache. So the web, of course, is failing, and the one we're executing is web here. But this other test, then it means this other test execute fully, and they all pass. Yeah, so the other tests are passing. The only one that's failing is the web one. And it's failing for like assertion reasons, which is acceptable and that can be fixed. It's not failing because of like import reasons. So I guess we might have fixed that modulation thing. Maybe you might need to test the execution of the project itself, and see whether it will still work with those changes that we've done. Yeah, so it seems it's broken. Registration API. So at which point does it fail? Unable to find suitable main class. Oh, okay. So yeah, I think this is related to modularization. If it can't find the main class, there should be some entry point, despite being a multi-module project. I was thinking main point would be in common, but that's a different issue. So Regan, can we agree that you will debug that and then we'll check it out next?
No problem.
Should I push this git to to GitHub and sorry, this diff to GitHub, and then you'll check it out.
Yes, yes.
Let's call these upgrade Spring Boot to 4.1, which led to the other things. So of course we'll meet again next Friday. I don't know who is still here with us. Oh, okay, plenty of you are still here. So we'll meet again next Friday, and on that session we'll revisit this, and maybe the main thing that we were supposed to learn with the group sequence and how to properly organize your validation. I think we've covered that fairly effectively. We've covered it exhaustively, and thank you, Rikan, for explaining those concepts to us, and also Patrick and everybody else. So if we revisit this repository, it will be to see how the actual tests are executed and how the validation is arranged from a mock MVC standpoint, and seeing those capabilities in action. And maybe we might have to have something else that covers the session as well, just in case we're able to cover that bit quickly. Otherwise, thank you, Rikan, for writing this code and sharing it with us. This was impromptu. I didn't notify you that we were going to do this. So thank you for being flexible and answering all our curiosity questions and showing us how to use this capability. I've pushed the code. Wait, what? Git push. Could not read from remote repository. Permission denied. What? Oh wait, I think I'm trying to push directly to your Nini. Do you have branch protection on that?
Yes, yes.
Okay, I think that's what.
Let me check.
I cloned yours. I didn't fork, so I can't push directly to that.
Yes.
So how do we do this? How can I share this diff with you without pushing? If you have branch protection, I can't push directly. What do we do? Or you'll just change? Will you know what we've done? Or I create another repository and push it there, then you'll check the diff. How do we do it? Accidentally, I cloned directly. I didn't create a fork of your repo, so now I can't push directly.
If I make you a contributor.
Yes. If you make me a contributor, then I'll be able to push directly.
And let me do it right away.
Does anybody have any comments, questions as we close? Yes, Patrick?
Again. Hi, everyone, once again. So,
yeah.
I wanted to say that today's session was one of our best. So, good. Congratulations to Sam and Regent for a very productive session today.
Yes.
Yes. Okay, I've seen Kennedy has gone to sleep.
Yeah.
I wanted to clarify the one for the restrictions on reflections. It is on mutated final fields.
Oh, okay.
Yes, so they are changing that one.
Mm-hmm.
Jakarta, they use reflections a lot.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah, so
I think, yes?
I was going to ask, so they use reflection even if the developer has declared final fields, they can be accessed and modified by Jakarta at runtime, at compile time or runtime.
Yes, by some implementations of the specifications. Not all. Yes. Okay. I was looking at the Spring validated annotation. I can see there are some differences with the at valid, and one of the differences is nested classes. For example, you have a user, you have an address.
Yes.
If they are nested, the address will not be, the fields on the address will not be validated by the strings validated. Yes, so maybe that's a very important point to note.
Oh, but what if you want the nested field to be validated as well?
Okay, but the validated for Spring does not do that.
So you need to use that valid.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, I think that's very important, and
yes, that's very important.
Yeah, that's very important, and I think we should experiment with it, because if you are dealing with a complex payload, you'll have a lot of nesting, and the validation doesn't go deep into your nest tree and check everything with the nested classes. Then that can be a problem.
Yes.
So we'll do an experiment with that. I don't know, Regan, maybe in your code base, you might have the password become its own individual class, and then wrap it inside the registration request and see whether the password fields are still validated. Or you can make the address an object and see whether the address fields can still be validated despite being nested.
Okay.
I'll also do some experiments with that.
I'll send you the invite.
Okay. Let me see if it should be available here. Okay, so now I have the invite. I think if I have contributor rights to the repository, I should be able to push directly. I'll still I should still get the warning, but it should push the code. Oh, in fact, there's no warning. Some refs. Okay, I think it has pushed. I don't even need to. Oh wait, it has not. Already up to date. Well, to push some refs. Why? Push decline due to repository.
What you do, don't push directly to main. Create a different branch so that we pull a request.
Okay. Okay. Branch. Let's call this JBE. JBE1 if we end up having to. Let me just make sure. Push. Git push. Dash set dash upstream. Origin. Okay, by the way, I like that they usually give you this URL for creating the pull request, although it should already pop up. Okay, so it also pops up on GitHub, but if you don't have it, you just paste it and it does the thing. I think the right name here would be upgrade Spring Boot to 4.1. Okay, so now you have it. Okay, looks good. Oh, okay. Oh, review. Oh, you have okay. So the branch protection thing. Yeah, but the diff is mainly with the Spring Boot upgrade and adding some of those dependencies. And
Pamoja na kuisha inaisha.
sorry? Umesema?
Iko sawa.
Oh, okay. Okay, so you would check out. You'll check.
I think it's because more. I also need to pull the request.
Oh.
No. Yeah, I need to pull.
Oh yeah. Oh, on your local.
Yes. No, ni kwa site to 1 minute.
Okay. Yeah. So the diff is okay. So you'll be able to find everything there. Patrick, but then before you go, I was thinking one of these Fridays we should do a Hello World Jakarta session where we just use Jakarta EE to write a Hello World REST endpoint to teach people about Jakarta.
Okay.
I don't know if you can be available one of this Friday to lead that session, introduce Jakarta and show how you can use it to run away from Spring Boot psychosis, which most of us are in.
Okay. After you have granted to let me know.
Yes.
This will be my first session, so hope it will go well.
Oh yeah, I'm sure it will go well.
Yes.
So I was thinking next Friday.
Okay, that's okay.
So next Friday we switch gears, we do something new.
Okay, that's okay.
Awesome.
So we do REST.
Yes.
The REST and GPA.
Exactly, with Jakarta now.
Yes. GPA or Jakarta data.
Yes, Jakarta data.
Sawa.
In future also we'll organize time and do Hibernate. If one of us ever finds ourselves employed in a legacy database and instead of finding clean repositories, you find yourself with the Hibernate query selectors and custom queries that with XML that's defining the schema, and so that it doesn't become a nightmare.
But okay, we stopped doing that a long time ago.
Yes.
So if you find that one, they are very, very old application.
Yeah, I know of one, by the way, a very important application that runs almost all hospitals in Kenya, and not even in Kenya. I think the whole of Africa. There is a project called OpenMRS. This project, Electronic Medical Record System. So the Kenyan version is Kenya EMR, which is a fork of this OpenMRS. Their code is on GitHub, and I think they are still using Hibernate, and they're using the old style Hibernate, unless they migrated it. Maybe I'm wrong. So if I check out OpenMRS core, my network is starting to surrender. If we look at, let's see, persistence could be, so they're using Liquibase. Persistence could be here in API. GitHub, come on. I don't think it's my network. I think it's just GitHub that is slow. Yes?
I think you do it from your end. Nilikuwa nimesahau kwa bypass rules.
Okay. But I'm not able to match.
Refresh.
Oh, okay.
Refresh.
Okay. Yeah, I think GitHub is having one of these brownouts. All of a sudden, all the services have become slow. Even code navigation. So it's still loading. I wanted to show Patrick something here before he falls asleep as well. So Patrick, you see, so there's Liquibase and here it is, Patrick, if this can bring you some nightmares. Remember Hibernate config.xml? Sorry?
What is that one?
You have never like configured Hibernate like this?
No.
So here you create, so this is the root XML file, and then you create it and specify all the entities. So concept is an entity, a field type is an entity. So if you go to, where are they specified? So if we go to the project here, I think at the project level, and then you go to, no, there. I think maybe it's in API. Yeah, API, Hibernate. So now you see this entity is specified in XML form. So ID is specified, the type is java.lang.integer, column name, concept ID. So this will be the database column name, and then you specify the generator, like that at generator notation. You're specifying it in XML, and you specify the generation strategy. Same with UID, you specify the column name, the type, and the name in the database, length, nini. So like the whole, this is the entity. No annotations, just XML.
I've not done this.
So this is true legacy.
Yes, this is true legacy. Even the one we'll be doing,
yeah,
will be just similar to Spring. Most of the things.
Oh yeah. If we start showing, if somebody is new to Java backend development, and then you start them here, they'll just run away.
Yeah.
Yeah. So this is true legacy. If you're hired to work in like a bank or one of these old institutions, this is the code base you end up dealing with, not the clean ones that we work with here. But anyway, I'm looking forward to that. Regan, GitHub hasn't yet granted me permission to merge. There it is. I have it. Yeah. Okay, it's merged. Awesome. So now you are set. You can proceed from there. And then
yes.
In the middle of the week, in the course of the week, if you are done with it and there's any way I can help, just reach out and we'll see.
No problem.
Yeah. So Patrick, Friday, it's a deal. We do Jakarta. You're on mute.
Yes, we do Jakarta. That's the introduction of REST, Jakarta data, and then Glassfish server.
Awesome.
You know, you guys, you don't manage a server.
No, but me personally, I do. I manage multiple standalone Tomcat instances. So I'm still a .war guy. I'm not doing .jar.
No, you're making war.
I'm making war. I'm still in war. So I'm still making war files.
Okay.
But that will also be interesting.
Yes. That's okay.
Awesome. We'll do it Friday. I'll announce it, and I think that will be fun.
Good.
Yeah. Okay, so I think we are set. Regan, you're set for doing the pending experiments.
Yes.
Okay. See, then we have a wonderful weekend. I think this session has been the most detailed we've done in a long time. So I wish you guys a wonderful weekend. See you again next Friday for another episode of Java by Example. Have a happy weekend.
Sam.
Hey.
A follow kwa GitHub will not do you harm.
Let me follow you. You deserve the follow. You deserve the follow. Patrick.
It's a new account because sasa ile ingine nilipoteza logins.
Oh my
God. Will share the link?
Let me share it. Yeah, follow this young man. Aya,
Mtu ni
nimefollow.
kujiombea.
Si ndio,
Thank you.
lazima.
Yes.
Visibility is very important.
Mm.
Okay. I think we can close it there. Rika, Nama, you have another request?
Not at the moment.
Okay, cool. Okay, let's close it there. We meet again next Friday for another session, and we get to explore Java even more. Joseph Steng, thank you for sticking around with us for this long, even though you've been quiet. Thank you for being here. And happy weekend. Oh, yes, Joseph, at least to Salimia.
Hey guys. So it has been an informative session.
Yes.
It's long since I joined this. It has been, I think, it's some months. So, but based on the content that I've gained today, I think I'll make it. I think to keep on following.
Yes.
Yeah, I'm a software engineer. Yeah, and there are some few things I've seen. So for me, I learn, I go explore more. Yeah, and also I think you have pointed something to do with Java restrictions on when it comes to reflection. I think I'm affected. I have some few projects that have extensively used reflection. So yeah, and they are libraries and they are being used by other people. So I know at some point they will be on my neck. So I think pointing it out made me started focusing on how I'll be able to sort out those reflection issues. So yeah, it has been a great session. I enjoyed.
Awesome. And please join us. We always do them on Friday. The meeting link doesn't change. So join us, and we don't always only just do framework stuff. Sometimes we do language level things for library developers like you. So I think there's a session we had previously for method handle and var handle, covering the replacement for Java native interface, which is very important for library developers. So sometimes we go language level. So we're not always doing REST APIs. So please join regularly so that we can share ideas and grow together.
Yeah, thank you.
Awesome.
Last comment.
Yes.
In case of projects, Mimi, I'm open to explore.
Okay. Some you're open to work. You already have the credentials.
Yes.
Awesome. That's very important. And personally, I'll see whether there is any projects. But Patrick Pia and Joseph here, I'm sure if there are projects, they'll reach out. You've showed your credentials. Like we spent this whole session just discussing your code, which is super awesome. Okay. I haven't even had supper yet, so let me let you guys go.
Me too.
And I'm realizing that now. I was not realizing it during the session. So let me let you guys go. We meet again next Friday for another session. Okay. Have a happy weekend, guys. Have fun. Awesome.